Well, joining us now is Arlen Suderman of StoneX. All right, Arlen, looking at the post-report reaction, USDA didn't cut soybean yields. I mean, they left it unchanged. So why did traders view this report as bullish for beans?
I think the trade was really braced for much higher yields. I think they saw the possibility that maybe we would be up there close to 55 bushels per acre. That was kind of the whisper number, so to speak, not necessarily the average trade guess that was published. So it's a little bit of sigh of relief. And then when you see USDA, uh, it, increase crush, domestic crush a little bit, 5 million bushels for the old crop, not make any adjustments upward on yield overall, is thinking, okay, maybe the bad news is into this market. I don't know that we can really take that assumption this early in the game because soybeans are still filling pods. And so there's a lot of potential changes in either way that can happen. And I think USDA mostly just took a safe route. It was interesting to note that pod counts in this report were below year-ago levels. And that was a little bit surprising considering the pod populations that Pro Farmer found on their crop tour here last month. Maybe we lost a lot of pods there in late August. That'd be a possibility. But on the other hand, what counters that is you do the math in USDA's numbers, it would suggest a pretty good size seed size. You don't usually lose a lot of pods if you have conditions conducive for good seed size. But overall, I think translate this as USDA saying, not enough of the soybeans are mature. Let's just go the safe route and not really change anything. Over the last 5 years, pod counts have gone up every year of the last 5 years from September to October by varying amounts, sometimes significantly. So I don't really think we'll have a good handle on the soybean crop size until the October report.
Okay, let's switch over to corn because USDA's decision to raise the yields half a bushel, now at 183.6 bushels per acre. Arlen, that was above pre-report expectations, but is that disastrous for the balance sheet, do you think?
I don't think it's disastrous. I do think that I originally thought USDA came up really kind of back in May, fluffed up their demand estimates to keep ending stocks down around below 2.1 billion bushels. I feel better about the number now because we have a smaller Black Sea crop and we're generally expecting acreage to be planted in Argentina to be down 20 to 25%. Granted, that's going to soybeans, so that's bearish soybeans. But if you have a much smaller crop in Argentina, you have a smaller crop in the Black Sea, that could boost our exports in the last half of the marketing year. I generally agree with the stronger ethanol demand. Cheaper prices are creating demand there. Also, feed usage. We're feeding both hogs and cattle to heavier carcass weights. Cheap feed does create more demand. So overall, I think I feel pretty good about the corn number. 2 billion bushels is still quite a bit of corn for a carryout, but maybe it's below what we feared here a couple of months ago.
Well, it's interesting to note USDA actually lowered Illinois, the statewide corn yield there by 3 bushels per acre, but raised Iowa by 3 bushels per acre. So that's kind of offset each other. Okay, but Arlen, right now, if farmers are weighing the decision, do I store or do I sell at harvest? What do you want them to keep in mind?
Yeah, that's going to vary obviously by every producer, but I think a couple of things you got to keep in mind is your local situation, first of all. It looks like we're going to have a weather pattern that facilitates a rapid dry down, which means a harvest of 2 record corn and a soybean crop coming in very quickly, really stretching our storage facilities. We also could end up with some problems on the Mississippi River with low water levels. There's even a risk of port strike by longshoremen on the East Coast as well as the Gulf Coast. And that could create some problems for exports as well. So basis could be at risk, amount of grain coming on at harvest time could be at risk. So depending on your on-farm storage, you need to really pay attention to that risk. If you don't have the on-farm storage, you need to take steps to protect yourself, protect the equity that you built into your farm.
Real quick, Arlen, you talk about all those factors, but is it too early to start talking about the dryness that we're seeing in South America?
Not too early to talk about it, but when I talk to our people in Brazil, they're not worried about it. And that's because most of the major models are still calling for the rains to return by the first week of October. That's a long ways out. Confidence is low that far out, but they've been very consistently calling for that for the last 2 weeks. And if that happens, it's not as early as they would prefer, but it's early enough to not affect production of either the soybean crop or the safrinha corn crop. So at this point, they're still anticipating a normal crop on both sides.
All right, Arlen, thank you so much. We need to take a quick break, and then we're checking in with Machinery Pete for Tractor Tales next.